I signed a fake marriage contract with a billionaire, but I never imagined I'd fall in love with his brother. I didn't grow up dreaming of mansions or men in suits. I grew up learning how to hide from bill collectors, how to make one meal stretch for 3 days, and how to pretend my sister's cough wasn't getting worse. So when a man like Darius Cole, cold, calculated, and terrifyingly rich, offered me $10 million to become his wife for a year, I didn't ask questions. I signed. I thought it was simple. Smile, pose, pretend. But the moment I met his brother, everything unraveled. Lucas was everything Darius wasn't. And worse, he saw everything Darius ignored. He saw me, and in a house full of secrets, surrounded by cameras, clauses, and people who wanted to see me fail, I did the one thing the contract forbade. I felt something real. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a story of survival, of betrayal, of falling in love with the wrong man, in the wrong life, at the wrong time. And it all began the moment I signed that contract. It was a Tuesday when everything fell apart, the kind of day that smells like wet pavement and regret. I was standing outside the hospital with rain soaking through my hoodie, staring at a number I couldn't afford, $86,450. My sister's transplant was approved, the surgery was scheduled, but without that payment they wouldn't move forward. I had 3 days and $29 to my name. No savings, no job, no one to call. I didn't cry. I couldn't. It's like my body was too tired for tears. I just sat on the bus stop bench, holding that bill with trembling hands, trying not to think about what would happen if I couldn't find the money. People walked past me. Some stared. Most didn't. Just like always. Then a black car pulled up. One of those sleek, expensive town cars you only see in movies. A woman stepped out. Tall, pale, dressed in black from head to toe. She walked straight toward me like she'd been following my GPS. "Jenna Crawford?" she asked. I blinked. "Yeah." Do I know you?" "Not yet, but I work for someone who can help you." She handed me a gold envelope. I opened it slowly, my fingers numb. Inside was a business card, a pen, and a contract, a real contract, the kind that smells like ink and expensive lies. I read the title twice: Confidential, Temporary Marriage Agreement, Darius Cole, CEO, Cole Enterprises. I looked up, waiting for a laugh. A camera crew. Nothing. "What is this?" "A solution," she said, like it was obvious. "Mr. Cole needs a wife. You need money. 1 year, public appearances only, 0 intimacy. $10 million wired in full upon completion." I nearly dropped the envelope. "This is insane," I said. "No, it's a contract. You'll play your part, smile at events, say nothing to the press, you'll live in his home, you'll wear his ring, but you'll be nothing to him. On paper, only." I looked at the hospital building behind her, at the paper in my hand, at the signature line empty and waiting. "Why me?" "Because you're invisible," she said, "and desperate. That makes you the perfect bride." She didn't smile. 2 hours later, I was sitting in the back of that black car, staring at my reflection in the window, and 20 minutes after that, I met him. Darius Cole. He didn't stand when I entered the room. Didn't look up from his tablet. The office smelled like steel and leather. His suit was darker than his eyes. He pointed to the chair in front of him. "You read the contract? Most of it. You agree? You're serious?" "Deadly." He looked up for the first time. Cold. Measured. Beautiful in that terrifying way people like him always are. "If you break the NDA, you'll be sued for everything you'll ever earn. If you fall in love with me, that's your mistake. If you try to leave before the year ends, I'll ruin you. You sound like a romantic." He didn't flinch. He just said, "Sign." I should have walked out, but I thought about Lily, about the machines keeping her alive, about that $86,450. I took the pen. 1 year? To the day. 10 million? Tax-free. You'll leave me alone? Gladly. I signed. And just like that, I sold myself. The next morning, they fitted me in a ring the size of a tooth. Pear-shaped. Platinum. I wore it like a collar. A stylist gave me a wardrobe worth more than my student loans. Hair, makeup, teeth whitening, skin resurfacing, and a full briefing from Darius's assistant. "You'll live at Cole Estate. Appear at 5 charity events. post 3 times a week on Instagram, and never ever speak to the press. And Darius? He won't bother you. What if I have questions? Don't. The mansion was cold, all white stone and glass and silence. The kind of place where you whisper without knowing why. My room was at the farthest wing. It had everything. A king bed, marble bathtub, walk-in closet. Everything except warmth. Darius didn't greet me, didn't text, didn't acknowledge me, even in the hallway. Just walked past like I didn't exist. On the 3rd day, I stood in the garden under a peach tree trying to breathe, trying not to cry, wondering if I could do this for 362 more days. And then I heard laughter, male, warm, real. "You must be the ghost bride," he said, stepping into view. He was barefoot, sleeves rolled, sketchpad in hand. His eyes were kind. Lucas Cole. "Don't worry," he said. "I won't bite. I just live on the grounds. Occasionally sneak into the fridge." I blinked. "You're Darius's brother?" "Unfortunately. But don't hold it against me." He sat across from me on the stone bench, pulled out a red pencil. "What's your name?" "You don't know?" "I like to learn it from you," I smiled. It felt strange. "Jenna." "Nice to meet you, Jenna. Sorry about your wedding," I laughed. I actually laughed. And for the first time since I signed that contract, I didn't feel like property. I felt seen. I don't know why that moment in the garden stuck with me. Maybe it was the way he smiled without expecting anything in return. Maybe it was how he said my name like it was worth remembering. Or maybe it was just the fact that he saw me, really saw me, when his brother didn't. Lucas Cole didn't feel like he belonged here. He dressed like he owned a bookstore, not a tech empire. His hair was always a little messy. His sleeves were always rolled. And he smelled like citrus and coffee. Not power. Not control. Not ambition. Just presence. We crossed paths again at breakfast. I was sitting alone in the glass dining room stirring a cup of tea I didn't want when he slid into the seat beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Let me guess," he said without looking at me. "You hate this place already." I raised an eyebrow. "It's not exactly welcoming. It's not meant to be. It's meant to look expensive on Instagram." I laughed. "So, what's your story?" I asked. "Oh, it's boring. I was the emotional liability of the family. Dropped out of business school, started painting, got disowned. Typical billionaire backstory. And yet, you're still here. Let's just say Darius owes me a favor or two." He looked at me then. Really looked. "But you don't look like the kind of woman who gets bought." I froze. I wasn't. He held up his hands. "Hey, I didn't mean it like that. It's just, my brother doesn't do things without motive. And neither do you, I'm guessing." I didn't answer. Because he was right. And because, for the first time since I signed the contract, someone wasn't talking at me. They were talking to me. That night, I found another note on my pillow. "If you need someone to talk to, I'm usually in the greenhouse." It wasn't signed. But I knew who it was from. I didn't go that night. But I thought about it for hours. Instead, I sat in the bathtub staring at the ring on my finger. It was beautiful, cold, heavy, just like Darius. The next time I saw Lucas, we were at the gala, our first public appearance. Darius barely acknowledged me on the car ride, just gave me a rundown of the talking points and reminded me not to embarrass him. When we entered the ballroom, he put his arm around me like I was a clutch purse. "Smile," he whispered. "That's what you're here for." I smiled. I posed. I stood next to a man who didn't care whether I lived or died. But Lucas was there too. Across the room, leaning against a column, watching, our eyes met. He tilted his head just slightly. Like he was asking, "Are you okay?" I blinked once. His expression changed. He pushed off the wall and made his way toward me. "Dance with me," he said, offering his hand. I glanced at Darius. He was mid-conversation with a shareholder and barely noticed. I shouldn't. One dance. No cameras, just music. I hesitated. Then I took his hand. We didn't dance like lovers. We danced like strangers who were pretending not to need each other. He didn't touch my waist. I didn't lean in, but our fingers said everything. "He doesn't deserve you," Lucas whispered. "You don't know me. I want to." A photographer's flash went off nearby. We pulled apart instantly. The music stopped, the illusion broke, and Darius noticed. That night he cornered me in the hallway. "You're playing a dangerous game." It was one dance, one slip-up, and this entire arrangement falls apart. Then maybe the arrangement is the problem. You don't get to question me. He stepped closer. You think Lucas is your savior? He's a spoiled child with a savior complex. He'll ruin you and then disappear. His voice was low, threatening, familiar. I didn't respond, because I was starting to wonder if he was right. The next morning, Lucas wasn't at breakfast, or the garden, or the greenhouse. A staff member told me he'd left the estate. No message, no note, just gone. For days I felt hollow. I tried to remind myself why I was here, why I signed the contract, why I couldn't afford to feel anything real. But when I closed my eyes, I didn't see dollar signs. I saw Lucas, his crooked smile, his kind eyes, his hand reaching for mine on the ballroom floor. Then one night, I found another note, slipped under my door. "He's not the only one who can play games. Meet me at the fountain, midnight." It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a name. I just needed to know if he still looked at me the way he did before he vanished. The night air felt heavy. There was no moon, just low fog hanging between the hedges of the coal estate like a warning. I walked to the fountain in my robe, half expecting to find nothing, to stand there like a fool in the dark, to be disappointed again. But he was there, sitting on the edge of the marble, hood up, head down. When he looked up, it hit me in the chest how tired he looked. Not physically, soul tired. "You came," he said. "You left," I replied. "I had to." "You didn't say goodbye. You didn't ask me to stay." We stood in silence for a moment, just two people tangled in the worst kind of almost. "Why did you really come back?" I asked. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a flash drive, because I finally got what I needed. He handed it to me. I stared at it. "What is this?" "Proof." We sat on the stone bench beside the fountain, and he told me everything. Lucas had been investigating Darius for over a year. Not because of jealousy, not because of spite, because he knew. He knew Darius had been faking marriages to secure deals, manipulate stockholders, and skirt legal gray zones. "You're not the first, Jenna," he said quietly. "There was another girl last year, and one before that. Different names, different countries, same contract. And you didn't stop him?" I didn't have proof, until now. The flash drive contained recordings of Darius mocking the board, of him referring to me as a prop, of him laying out a plan to move funds under the guise of a marital trust. My stomach turned. "Why me?" I asked. "Why did he pick me? Because you had nothing. No voice. No family name. You were a clean file." I looked at him, heart pounding. "So what now? You take this to the police?" "No." He leaned in. "We do it together. We take him down from the inside." Everything in me screamed no. No to drama, no to betrayal, no to becoming another pawn in a war I never signed up for. But the worst part was, I wanted to say yes. "Lucas," I said carefully, "there's more than just business at stake for me." "I know." He reached out and took my hand. It wasn't like the last time. This time, I didn't pull away. "But there's more than business at stake for me, too." I froze. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, I can't protect you if you're trying to protect him." The words hung there, because he was right. But this wasn't just about Darius. It was about my sister. About the money. About survival. If I betray him, I lose everything. You already lost yourself the moment you signed that contract. Silence again. Only this time it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, electric. Then he leaned in, slowly, like he was giving me time to run. I didn't. Our lips met like waves on glass, hesitant, trembling. And in that one kiss, I remembered who I was before desperation. We didn't speak after. He just held my hand and I let him. The next morning, the flash drive was gone. I searched my drawer, my purse, my robe pocket. Nothing. My chest tightened. Had Lucas taken it? Had Darius found it? I rushed to the greenhouse, our safe space. He wasn't there. I called his number. Disconnected. I checked with the staff. No one had seen him. Then I got the text. "If you thought my brother could protect you, you're more naive than I realized. Darius, my blood went cold. I ran to his office, fists clenched. He was waiting. Where is he? Gone. What did you do? Corrected a mistake, like I always do. He pulled open his drawer and dropped the flash drive on the desk. You think you're clever? Playing both sides? I own you, Jenna. You don't own anything but a lie, and yet you're still here. I slapped the drive off the desk. Not for long, he smiled. You break the contract, I sue your sister's hospital. I froze. He knew. You think I don't research my investments? He said, voice low. I know about Lily. I know her surgery's scheduled. You walk out, and she doesn't get that room. Tears burned the corners of my eyes, but I wouldn't let him see them fall. You're a monster. No, I'm a businessman. That night, I sat in my room holding the contract. Page 12, Clause 7. Any action deemed defamatory or disloyal by party B bride voids compensation. Everything was rigged. Everything was poison. And still, I had signed. But I also had something now. Anger, fire, and one secret clause buried in the fine print that even Darius didn't realize gave me power. I folded the contract slowly, and for the first time since I arrived, I smiled. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat by the window, watching the fog roll across the lawn like ghosts trying to find their way back home. My contract was open on the table in front of me, a dozen pages highlighted. I read it line by line, clause by clause, until I found it. Buried in the legalese of Clause 11, if Party B contributes to the corporate image or public valuation of coal enterprises in a way deemed significant by the Board of Directors, a bonus of no less than 12% of annual net gain may be awarded. A loophole. A narrow one, but it was there. I wasn't going to run anymore. I wasn't going to cry or hide or ask Lucas to fix it. I was going to beat Darius at his own game, and I was going to do it in public. The next morning I called his assistant. I want a new dress, custom, black velvet, and I want a media appearance. She was confused. Darius wasn't available. He was on a press tour in Tokyo. Perfect. I had 3 days to rewrite the narrative. I started with a video, a short, elegant, heavily filtered reel of me walking the estate gardens, gazing at the ring, sipping espresso on the marble steps. The caption, a woman's power isn't in the man she marries, but the life she creates on her own. It exploded. Comments poured in. Who is she? Why does she look like a villain in a fairy tale? Obsessed with her energy. By the time Darius returned, #Jenna Cole was trending. And he wasn't happy. He stormed into the drawing room, sunglasses still on. What the hell are you doing? Boosting your brand. I thought that's what you wanted. We had an agreement. No spotlight, no press. You said no press leaks. I am the press now. I handed him a printed screenshot of our social engagement. You're welcome. He scanned the numbers. He didn't smile, but he didn't stop me either, because he needed this. His board had been pushing for stronger brand relatability, and I had just handed it to him on a velvet glove tray. That night, I called a contact Lucas once mentioned, a tech editor from a lifestyle magazine. Let's do a feature, I said. Inside Cole Estate, the woman behind the man. I staged the entire interview. I wore white silk and a scarlet lip. I sat on the edge of Darius's grand piano and spoke slowly, deliberately. He saved my life, I told the journalist. He taught me how to stand still in a storm. A complete lie, but the public ate it up. Behind the scenes, I was setting traps, hidden mics, planted phone conversations, subtle mentions of the legacy fund Darius had created with contract wife money. Every lie he fed me, I repackaged for the public. Then came the gala, the one event bigger than our wedding, the Cole Foundation annual fundraiser. 400 guests, cameras, CEOs, politicians. It was our final public test before the board would decide whether to renew Darius's chairmanship. And it was my moment. I walked into the ballroom like I was born to break hearts. Black velvet, diamonds, a look that said, kiss me or fear me, there is no in between. Darius took my arm with practiced ease. You look lethal. Only when provoked. He smiled. Briefly. But I could see it in his eyes. Doubt. He knew I wasn't his anymore. But he still believed he could control the narrative. He was wrong. I spotted Lucas standing near the orchestra. He was back, hair slightly longer, eyes unreadable. He nodded once. Our cue. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. It was time for Darius's speech. He stepped up, cleared his throat, and began. Cole Enterprises is built on legacy, on truth, on the integrity of our partnerships. I pressed a button on my phone, and the ballroom changed forever. His voice crackled through the speaker system, but it wasn't the speech, it was a recording from 3 weeks ago. His voice, cold and smug. She's a placeholder, a pretty one, sure, but this isn't about love, it's about optics. The room froze. Someone gasped. Another voice, Darius again, from another day. My wife? Please. She's a contract, like a company car with better legs. My throat tightened, not from pain, from victory. The board members began murmuring. Phones lit up. The press started whispering into their recorders. Darius turned around slowly, face pale. Turn it off, he said. I stood. Oh, it's just getting started. I stepped onto the stage beside him, microphone in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, steady as steel, you've heard his version. Let me share mine. And I did. In front of 400 guests, I exposed the pattern. 3 women before me. 3 fake marriages. 3 massive financial gains. He didn't fall in love, he fell in profit. Security moved in. Board members demanded statements. The press surged forward. I handed over the flash drive, and with the same calm I used to sign the contract, I walked away. Lucas found me backstage. You didn't just expose him, you destroyed him. He deserved worse. He nodded. So, what now? Now? I said, looking at him with tired eyes, now I become someone new. The press exploded. By morning, every news outlet had my name in the headlines. Contract wife exposes billionaire husband on stage. Jenna Cole, the woman who took down a titan, from nobody to national headline in one night. They showed my face on the evening news. Clips of the gala speech went viral on TikTok and YouTube. Some people called me brave. Some called me a gold digger. Some just wanted to know what lipstick I wore, but no one ignored me anymore. Darius vanished. For 48 hours, there was silence. No statements, no press appearances. His PR team scrambled. Board members called emergency meetings. Cole Enterprises stock dropped 18% overnight. Then came the email. Just 5 words. We're not finished. DC. I knew it wasn't over. People like him never lose quietly. I doubled security. Hired a lawyer. Kept my sister out of the city. Lucas stayed close, but not too close. He'll come after your credibility, he warned. Not your body. Your name. And he was right. The next morning, articles started surfacing. Old arrest records from when I was 19. A photo of me crying in a public bathroom. False claims that I dated a board member in college. None of it was true. But it didn't matter. The internet didn't care about truth, just headlines. We should go away. Lucas said. Lay low, let it blow over. But I wasn't running, not this time. I started this in public, I told him. I'll finish it there. That night, I went live on Instagram, face bare, hair undone, no filter. I read every headline out loud. Then, one by one, I told the truth. Yes, I was desperate. Yes, I signed a contract, but the only thing I ever sold was my silence. And I'm done being quiet. The livestream hit 2.1 million views. The next day, a package arrived at my doorstep. No return label. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded once. A check for $10 million. Signed, Darius Cole, and a sticky note, you win, but money always talks louder than martyrs. Lucas was furious. It's blood money. He thinks he's still in control. But I didn't tear it up. Not yet. Because as much as I wanted to be the hero, I still had hospital bills and a sister who needed a second procedure. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, holding the check in one hand and a photograph in the other. It was me and Lily. Before the hospital. Before the mansion. Before all of this. Just 2 girls in thrift store coats, smiling at a sunset like it belonged to us. You know, I whispered aloud, I signed that contract because I thought money was power. I looked at the check. But it turns out, power is walking away even when you could stay. I didn't cash it. I donated it to a domestic abuse nonprofit in his name. A man so good, even his ex-wife wants others to be safe from people like him. That headline made me laugh. Lucas was there the night the story finally turned. He brought wine and pizza and sat cross-legged on my living room floor while we watched the news. Cole Enterprises loses majority vote, CEO removed after PR collapse. That's your legacy, he said. Not his. No, I said. That's just chapter 1. 3 months later, I opened my own foundation. A place for women like me, women who got cornered and told it was opportunity. Women who knew silence was expensive and truth even more so. Lily's doing well now. She wants to be a nurse, says she wants to help people like the ones who helped her. I tell her she already does. Lucas still visits. We don't talk about the past, we don't talk about the mansion or the contract or the kiss, we just exist. Side by side. Quietly. For now, I don't know what comes next. Maybe love? Maybe not. But I know who I am now. And no one gets to buy that. Not ever again. I signed a fake marriage contract with a billionaire, but I didn't fall for the money. I fell for the one thing he couldn't fake. Me. Would you have signed the contract? Comment below and subscribe for more stories where power, love, and truth collide.